Okay, we're going to be a little short with my handouts. We had a bigger crowd than I expected.
That's good.
So share them up as best you can. There will be some who want to keep them. That's fine. There are some who won't need them for obvious reasons when we get through with it, and that's fine as well. Are we all in?
Yeah, I think so.
You sure we didn't pick up people from the other room?
Yeah, you did. I'm just getting breakfast here, though.
Okay, just
I'll be
checking
gone.
on you. I thought that's
Anyway.
situational awareness. I can do with an on, please.
Well, now I can actually read it. That sucks.
Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve Rander. I'm your maintenance officer. And I asked to do the pre-flight checklist section of this orientation. And the reason is because we've just finished working on all of our gliders. Right? We've had a great winter, we've got everything fixed. We all know that everything is perfect in those aircraft, and we're going to go out and fly them. There's nothing we have to worry about. Good one. Because I look at it, when I look at these aircraft, is will this airplane or glider get me home? Not will it take me out to go fly, but will it actually get me home? Which is a little different approach. When I think of pre-flight checklists, I think of 3 different checklists. The first one is myself. Okay, that's the I'm safe program. You know, am I ill? Do I have a cold coming on? Have I been taking medications? Stress. There's an interesting one, stress. I live with a lot of stress at work. And I find to come out flying relieves my stress. However, if on the way to the airport somebody cuts me off, or I get to the airport and realize I left my data logger at the shop, or one other thing happens, I say to myself, wait a minute, you've just had 3 things happen on the way to come out flying to relieve your stress that shouldn't have happened. And I typically on that day will choose not to fly. I'll help the ops, I'll run wings, I'll do something because I'm not sure that there's something isn't going on in me that's causing these 3 things that occurred that frustrated me on my way to the airport isn't going to continue. So that's my approach. Alcohol. Who didn't have that glass of wine last night? Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? Okay. Fatigue. Boy, we go to the Alva, we fly every single day. You know, I get up at 5 in the morning, I get the coffee made. By 10 o'clock, some people are doing some practice flights. You know, we're off the ground for sure by noon. They don't come back until it's time to cook supper. By day 5 or 6, you guys who fly contests know what I'm talking about. It can be a little grueling getting up at 5 in the morning. So think about that fatigue issue. And the last one on it is eating. While I may be a little close to hyperglycemic, I know that I need to eat before I go flying, and I actually carry granola bars or a sandwich or something with me when I'm flying besides my water. Because if I've had a nice long flight down to McMinnville or whatever and I'm coming back and I want to make a nice landing, I need to eat something. And I need to eat it somewhere before I get to the airport so that it actually has a chance to get into my system. It's amazing how much better my landings are than if I don't. Okay? So that's that one. We're done with that system. Okay? If we jump in and look at the rest of this, it's based on the glider. Okay? I compiled it from a bunch of different things. And it basically says nothing more than to go around the glider from one point sequentially looking at everything in that ship until you get to the other end. If somebody comes along and interrupts you, wants to talk to you about somebody's bad landing, wants to, whatever the conversation is, tell them to go away. Leave you alone. If that can't happen, then stop what you're doing, have the conversation, but go back to the very beginning. Go back into the cockpit and start over, because you don't know where you've lost that one step that could hurt you. Now, why am I so concerned about this? Let me tell you about your own airplanes. Okay? The Junior, when we were actually working on it this year, doing our maintenance, it was discovered that the rudder pedal cables have a joint just slightly after the pedals in which there's a clevis pin and a safety pin. Well, that safety pin, for whatever reason, was faced toward the pilot, and somewhere along the way, somebody hooked it with their pants, disconnected it, and peeled it out and took it with them. And I have no idea how long all of us have been flying that plane with nothing holding that clevis pin in, which could have caused it to fall out and the rudders to lock in one direction. Okay? That's one. While pre-flighting the 233 one day, I noticed a little rust. Being the maintenance officer, I'm always a little hard on rust, so I got my pocket knife out and I started picking at the support rod for the horizontal. And as I picked at it and picked at it and picked at it, I suddenly picked a hole right through it. We grounded the plane, made another rod before we could fly it again. There's no reason that horizontal was staying on that aircraft. When we maintenanced the Junior this year, besides the clevis pin missing, the entire interior seat pan had become no longer bonded to the fuselage, which means that that plane occurred a very hard landing. But no one shared that hard landing with anybody else. And people continued to fly it without realizing that the controls are connected to the seat pan. And when you move the controls, the seat pan was moving. So pre-flight is important. And it really means looking at every single part of the airplane. Okay? One that I see happening that makes me nervous is again on the Junior. Why am I picking on that plane? Because it's a great plane. For some reason in pre-flights, someone has told people to really inspect the little hotelier connector in the back that controls the elevator. And for some reason I see new people reaching up in there and pushing the button and disconnecting it. And then connecting it to see that it's connected. It makes me want to wander right behind them and go check it again. Okay? So if you're purposely taking something apart, cross-checking, make sure it actually did get back together, and then have somebody check your work. When we assemble our gliders out here, we have an assembly lead. The glider gets assembled, and then somebody comes behind that person and checks them again. The reason for that is exactly what we're talking about. Make sure the planes are actually together.
That's a dumb question.
Yes, sir.
Why would you allow somebody to take the thing apart? Is that not maintenance? I
don't know why I've seen this, and it's been typically in new people, so I think their instructors are showing them at some point how this thing is put together and how it works and how to check it, because the connector, if you looked at it,
I don't want to delay the
no, it's okay.
discussion here.
This is
This
fine.
is a general principle. You don't let pilots fool with the maintenance, right?
Well, we all own these aircraft.
No, you do on glider.
This is sort of what this thing looks like, and it's got some threads and it goes in the control rod. But there's a slide that slides on this,
Oh, I see.
and it's got a loop in it like this, right? And it's got a little button down here. Okay? So what happens is to connect this, you push the button in, you slide this down, you hook it on, this slides back up, it locks it, and the button pops out. So all you really have to do, lift the elevator, look at it, see if the button's out, it's connected.
I promise you, I'm never touching it.
Well, there's
I'll look
lots
at
of
it.
things like
I'm not touching
that.
it.
But you need to look at it.
Yeah, I'll look at it.
I mean, you have to see what it is. I mean,
Okay, thank you.
the important part is we all know our aircraft. We need to know it. Okay. In my own aircraft, I had a situation occur that goes into Brock's talk about kill the tow pilot. Mosquito has flaps, and typically, like a lot of glass ships, we start off our takeoff rolls with the flaps in a negative position until you get aileron control, okay? And then you drop into a positive position, and Mosquito, it jumps off the ground, okay? I mean, it literally jumps off the ground. And immediately you put the stick forward to control the pitch altitude so that you're still going along the ground behind the tow plane, okay? In this particular case, I had done all my pre-flight. I had checked everything. Before the takeoff roll, I cycled through everything like I always do. When I jumped off the ground, I went to push the stick forward and it didn't go forward. It wouldn't go forward. And I'm in this mode now. Pull the release, save the tow pilot. Now I'm looking at the end of the field coming up, and the plane's still going up and slowing down. And it took about 3 hits before I cleared the problem. And it turned out that a little coax cable out of my flight recorder had gone down and looped itself around the end of the parallelogram stick. Never happened before, never happened since, but I do check it. But somewhere vibrating down the runway is when it occurred, okay? So always be ready for that unusual happening. And think your tow pilot.
What kind of fix did you make to make sure that didn't happen after that?
I actually, when I reconnected everything, I pulled the back of the dash out and tie wrapped that wire into a tighter bundle inside. And as a backup, I put a piece of tape across it, underneath. Backup for the backup. Okay. The third checklist is the last one before you take off. And that's your typical A, B, C, C, D, D, R. We added R to it because we need you to talk to the tow pilot prior to trundling down the runway with him to establish that communication loop. Okay? So when I approach and come up to the line to take off, the very first thing I do is I take my tail dolly off. Every time. Even if I'm the 5th plane back. We don't allow 5 planes, do we? But even if I'm the 5th plane back, once I push out, I take the tail dolly off. That's my savior for not taking off with it. Okay? That's all I've got. Questions? Mr. Wieters.
If you don't use this list, then it's no good. So we ought to help one another. If you see somebody getting ready to fly, where's your checklist? Is he using it? The more experienced you are, the more you won't use a checklist.
And it's true.
I think you know and you don't know nothing.
You know, I go out to my own plane. I've got it assembled at the field. I've got covers on it. I just landed it yesterday
It
afternoon.
flew yesterday.
You know, I go back out, I go to get in it. What do? I peel the covers off, I push it out. If I keep doing it, it'll kill me.
I'm guilty of not using one, and so help me.
Yeah.
Help
So,
me. Help me.
Something
I
else
can
is-
print up more of these things if you want them, or you can help each other out. Get one.
Something else is some of the members that have been around longer, it never was a requirement to make radio contact with the tow pilot. It is now.
It is now.
So be sure everybody's aware, you need to make radio contact. And if you can't, if there's no radio, you need to make some other arrangement and get approval to do that, if that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
That becomes non-standard on the briefing.
Anything else? Going once?
You didn't mention positives, which I've seen
You
effectively
actually,
used.
yeah, and I skipped over that. While you do your pre-flight at the tie-down spot where the airplane is, when you finish that by yourself, without being disturbed, seek help and do a positive right there and not in the launch line. If you're doing it in the launch line, something's wrong. It needs to be done back where the tie-down area is. And do a positive and go through it and make sure everything works. I know as a fact that on the Russia, they actually broke the rudder cable doing a positive. It had frayed right where it goes behind the way the rudder fits on the rudder on the Russia, and it broke, bang, right there. So positives do save lives. Okay, that's it.
You're early. Great.
My hope is that I was, because I know you guys talk forever.